Hi guys, Dark Phoenix Ninja 92 here, and welcome to my review of Kaiserreich Legacy of the Weltkrieg, a World War I alternate history mod, specifically the review of the version for Hearts of Iron 4. Now, before we get started, a few caveats. First of all, this mod is in a very early state of development. This is the 0.1.4 alpha that I'm on right now, and it was the 0.1 alpha when I did my first look. Secondly, this is Hearts of Iron 4, which, as we all know, Paradox games are fairly well known for being fucking massive. And I have only played about 10 hours of Kaiserreich, so I don't know it that well. But I know it well enough that I feel fairly comfortable doing this review. Finally, this is also running the optional Kaiserreich music pack, which adds in some additional music into the game, which I think just adds to the atmosphere. But first of all, for us getting started, we're going to load up a game, and I'm going to do one as Russia, since that's the country I'm playing through as right now. And I will show you a few of the differences, and how things are not like vanilla with this, just as soon as it loads up. And there we go. First of all, you can see the map is quite a bit different. And amongst other things, if you look right here, you obviously have what's essentially Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, who are independent here, but things are not the same. For one thing, the Kingdom of Ukraine exists here. Ukraine is independent of Russia, which is obviously not the case. There's the entire Caucasus region, as well as Central Asia, bits of Mongolia, and some of the Far East that are not owned by Russia, and for the other major thing, we are Russia, not the Soviet Union. The German Empire exists, and I'm just sort of glossing over things because I did a first look on this mod, and if you want more specifics, you can go into that. But yeah, there is a lot. Russia has lost a lot of territory in this, and there are a significant number of changes to the map in this mod. And also, not to put too fine a point on it, but Russia's industrial capabilities at the start are kind of shit. We have a total of 10 military factories. Russia is basically on par with fucking Brazil in the vanilla game, or something like that. And basically, this, as I said, is an alternate history mod where Germany won the First World War. So they got to keep all the stuff that they took from Russia in the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. But that's the general overview, and as much as you're going to get for that. This mod is very different in a number of ways. First of all, you'll notice if you look up here that our political power as Russia is negative. It starts off like that because we're in a bit of a state, and a lot of countries in this game are out in completely different places than how they'd be historically, because obviously alternate history. I'm not going to go too much into detail with Russia, but suffice it to say, industry is not the only thing we are lacking in. We also have only 3 research slots, and very low manpower. if I remember right, in the vanilla game, Russia has about 2 million manpower to start out. Well, right now we have about 163,000 manpower. That's about on the level the UK is in vanilla, and probably what they are in this. I've never actually played as the UK in Kaiserreich. But back on topic. Some of the vanilla functions have been removed, and this is something I only found out recently because I was talking to one of the mod authors on Discord. Guarantees, the ability to guarantee a country's independence is not in Kaiserreich. They took that out. And I'll get into how I know that in a little bit. Or why that's relevant, rather. Guarantees do not exist in this mod. Also, Kaiserreich has a good deal more randomness than you'll find in most games. Most games of Hearts of Iron, that is. And what that means is any game you could have pretty much anything happen. And the different focus trees reflect that, and I picked Russia because it's a very good illustration of how things are different with the focus trees, because there's, as the mod is right now, not everything is finished, obviously. There are a number of things at the moment where there are some countries with completed focus trees, which are generally the countries that would be considered to, at this point, be at the heart of things. And there are other countries that they have events, and there are still others that they're just in the process of being completed, so they don't really have either yet. And there are some that are just stated as being in progress, even though they're majorly important. And the countries I can tell you right now that actually have their focus trees, Russia has one, that have their own focus trees rather than the generic minor ones. Russia has their own focus tree, I know that for certain. So does the German Empire, and the Commune of France, and the Union of Britain, and the Dominion of Canada. National France does. Japan certainly does. The Qing Empire does. A lot of these other people down in Asia, they haven't really gotten to their focus trees yet. And some of the ones that just have events at this point and not focus trees would be the United States. Yes, really. Because in Kaiserreich, the United States is pretty much considered to be a nobody in international affairs. Because Germany's the one that actually matters. And I believe also the Ottoman Empire, but don't quote me on that. I believe they are also a nation that has no focus tree but just has events at the moment. And that is the way things are at the moment. So the focus trees, the way they work at present is, it's not all you just pick something and get the effects. You can't actually pick stuff right off the bat. Like this one right here, President Kerensky. It's on the focus tree because that's a way to represent it. But what this is there's an event you get as Russia early on where your head of state will be assassinated. And once that happens, this will complete. And then these down here, as well as this, you will get... You will get them... They will complete... Once you get a certain event that will pop up and you choose what kind of government you want. Or if certain other things happen. Like, if you get certain uprisings of the peasants, for example, it can immediately flip you to this. Which, because of some game mechanics at the moment, you can't actually use mods for changing tags and stuff, as far as I'm aware, so this will give you a game over screen. Then when you hit to continue after that, you will immediately jump back in as the nation, as basically the Soviets who annexed Russia as part of an event. And it's the same with all of these. You'll unlock these different lines based on events. Basically, to sort of, what this means is these different parts of the focus tree are locked until certain things happen. So if you hit a certain event, then it will unlock the ability to do something. So there will be an event that you will get that will unlock the Okrana as part of the focus tree, and there will also be an event that you'll get, which is just basically click OK, that will allow you to reform the army and navy, and until you get those, you cannot select any of those options. Which makes things very interesting, because you have to wait to do certain national foci until a certain time. And another thing I would like to mention, at this moment in the mod, the military staff don't actually do anything. They cost points to fill up the slots, but they don't do anything. Basically, that's one thing that the mod authors are probably planning to add in later, but haven't got to yet. And these are going to probably be more a different way to buff your military, similar to how they are in vanilla eventually, but it's not finished yet, so they left it out. And the industrial concern thing under research and production is different in this, in that some of these will actually make you build, give you bonuses. Like the one for infantry equipment, it will give your infantry more soft attack, but it will take more production to build infantry equipment. Things like that. And at this moment in time, theorists do not exist in the mod, as far as I am aware. And this button over here, which in the vanilla game is for your political officers, has been replaced with decisions, which do not exist as of yet, and that is likely another feature that's going to be added in with time. And there's a few more things over here. You have average party popularity, which is how liked amongst the general populace is the party that's in power. And the more popular they are, the more political power you get per day. And political power in Kaiserreich is very important. Like, a lot of those events you get that in vanilla will give you more political power, in Kaiserreich will take political power from you. Next you have stability, which at the moment, average stability doesn't do anything, but you want your stability to be high. Because higher stability gives you more national unity and more factory output. It's just generally a good thing. And your stability is based on the amount of political power you have. Average just gives you nothing, no good, no bad. But it goes up the more political power you have. And, as I said, political power is a very precious resource in Kaiserreich. It represents... basically, it's like Descent is in the Darkest Hour version of the mod. Which makes things very, very interesting. Because, as a result of that, because of the way they like to take away political power like mad, it's quite easy to get into a spiraling situation like that, especially as a nation like Russia, which can lead to a civil war if you get your political power low enough. And that also makes it interesting because changing laws and adding people to your industrial concern and stuff, it's something you have to think a lot harder about, because in the vanilla game you would just, as soon as you got the points and the world situation allowed you to, you'd pretty much click okay, going limited conscription for more manpower. In Kaiserreich, you can't do that. You have to actually think about it and decide if it's worth losing the political power to be able to mobilize more troops into your army. And there are a lot. And there's also a few options in the focus trees at the moment that don't actually do anything. And there's a few other things I want to get into, but that will have to wait, because I'm going to load up the save from my latest game, which I was playing as Russia, and I'll keep talking about stuff then, because I want you to see things. As you could see from there, before as Russia, I had about 140,000 manpower in 1936. Now it's 6 years later, well, 6.5 years later basically, 10th of August 1942. And have a look up here. Russia now has, well, the Soviet Republic, but it's still technically Russia. This is just, like I told you, the way they have to represent us changing governments now, is you get a game over, and that sort of thing, and then it jumps you into the country you would have become. But now, about 8 years later, no, 6 years later, I have 18 million manpower. Which, the vast majority of that was due to things that I got from things in my stuff in my national focus tree. Which, let's go into that and have a little look. Well, my national focus tree, and also things from events. For one thing, the moment I became the Soviet Republic, I chose to elect Tukhachevsky's internationalists, which then, what that did was it gave me an event to decide about the military situation, basically. And I had 3 options, which would have given different amounts of recruitable population boosts each. And I picked the one that was basically Soviet Russia as an armed camp, and I got an 8.5% boost in my recruitable population while I was still on volunteer only, which shot me up from about 140,000 or so manpower to about 2 million. It was either 2 million or 10 million, I can't remember which. Then I picked up a bunch of extra stuff, and one I got very recently shot up my recruitable population by another 5%, bringing me to 18.32 million recruitable population. And I have about 200 divisions in armies right now, and probably another 50 or 60 that are still unassigned. And let's have another look at the tree. I want to show you how I went about things and just talk about the mod a little more. So there's a variety of different things you can do for improving your relations with other communist or syndicalist, as it's called in this nation, countries, as the Soviet Union. There's a couple of things you can pick that will allow you to justify wars faster, and obviously get more research slots. Which I started with 3, I now have 5. There is an industrial tree you can go down to get more civilian and military factories, as well as some additional production efficiency and factory output. Some more infrastructure, civilian factories, as well as this one here, which just straight up gives you more resources. So it gives you 6 more rubber, 12 more steel, and 5 more oil. Which is pretty handy, because you need the resources. And you'll recall I mentioned earlier about there being some options that don't actually do anything. That's under this naval reorganization tree. Launch cruiser overhaul. It gives you an event, but as far as I'm able to tell, that event did not actually do anything. So I'm not sure what it was supposed to do, or if it was just based on the fact that at this moment I've not actually I don't actually have any modern warships researched, so that might have been it. I'm not really sure, but it doesn't seem too likely. Then you go all the way over here, and you have the events that you take for expanding your territory. There's a number of them. First, I took Exporting the Revolution, which gave me more justify any time. Then Southern Expansion. Red Cossacks, which I sponsored a Soviet coup in the Dongkuban Union, that country that was around this area. My coup failed, and we ended up at war. But as a result of a decision that I got pretty much right after I became the Soviet Union, I had Georgia as an ally, and the idiot Cossacks decided to invade Georgia rather than simply sending all their divisions north and trying to stop me. They busied themselves trying to make the Georgians capitulate. Didn't go too well for them. I think I had at most 2 or 3 battles that entire war. The rest of it was just occupying their stuff. After that, the rest of my coups went pretty well. Let's see, Azerbaijan and Armenia I got hold of. Fairly easily. those two countries, Azerbaijan, I just basically threatened them, and they gave in. Armenia, I offered the Ottoman Empire a non-aggression pact if they gave me Armenia, and they agreed. So when I did that, because Georgia was my ally, I didn't have an option to expand into them or anything. Offer them integration or anything, which I would have done. But that was the end of the Caucasus. Then we had a Soviet coup in the Alash Order, which is this area here. They fell, and I made them part of Russia. Then I did war with Turkestan, followed by war in Central Asia. That is, I did those focuses. Because at the time, Turkestan and Mongolia were allies. And Mongolia... Let's see, I'm looking in the wrong place. Yeah, Mongolia was around there, and Turkestan was around there. No, Turkestan was around there. Get your brain straight. Yeah, Turkestan was there, and Mongolia was here. So, what ended up happening was I went to war with the both of them. That was straightforward, if slow going. And I annexed both of them, plus I got a little extra, because Ma Klik here was a Mongolian puppet, which gave me some extra land. And the last thing I did was I went Eastern Security, which I'd also done at the time because I needed that to hit Trans-Siberian Crisis. And then I did Trans-Amurian Syndicalists. And that let me annex the Admiralty of Transamur over here, which was a Japanese puppet state. And I got all of that. Then, a few years later, Japan declared war on me. I basically ripped them to shreds at that point. And I took whole... Yeah, I basically ripped them to shreds, occupied the whole of Manchuria, or the Fentian Republic as it was then, and Korea. They kept taking it back, I kept reoccupying it, and that went on for about a year until... I don't know why this happened or how, but I offered Japan a white peace and they accepted. Because at the time, I just couldn't be bothered with Manchuria or Korea. Of course, what I didn't anticipate was that resulting in, since all that territory immediately flipped back to their control, I had about 30 divisions in that region, and I lost all but one of them because they were in the area when it flipped back. They didn't get exiled, they were just all destroyed. But that should tell you something. I just looked at me losing about 30 divisions and didn't even blink. Because I had enough manpower to replace those guys hundreds of times over without even being bothered by it. But now that we're talking about all my conquests, and once I did that, I went down Soviet Europe, create the Fourth International, the Second Weltkrieg, which this gives me an event where I could either decide to side with France or strike out on my own. I just decided, screw the French, I don't need them. and formed my own faction. Once again. After I destroyed my old faction, which kicked out Georgia, then I created this new one and invited them to it again. And then, about 3 months prior to this point, France finally did the focus. Demand Alsace-Lorraine. So, Germany refused, and France went to war with Germany. And they are currently invading Flanders-Wallonia, aka Belgium. As well as the Italian Federation, who invaded the Socialist Republic of Italy and are basically curb-stomping them. Right now, I have all of my soldiers camped on the borders, with Finland, Germany's puppet states and allies in the east, and the Ottoman Empire. Though it looks like I need a few more on this border. And I'm just waiting to see what happens between Germany and France. So, now that we're talking about all my conquests and invasions and stuff, there's one other mechanic that Kaiserreich's added in for nations like Russia who are reclaiming lost territory that I want to talk about. Like, if you look down here, I have this as a core state. And you look here, that's Marklik, and it's a colony state. So what Russia can do is, since you're reclaiming territory in areas like this, you will get events that will give you cores on this. It doesn't happen for every state in the game, but if it was territory that formerly, in real-life history, belonged to the Russian Empire, you will get a core on it, and will be able to use the full amount of industry, rather than not having access to everything you would if it were not a core. Which means that taking Finland, Ukraine, United Baltic Duchy, White Ruthenia, Lithuania, Poland, and probably some bits and pieces in the east here that I'm not thinking of, they will become my cores and I'll be able to fully utilize them. These aren't just territories that I'll have claims on that I conquered. They're actually mine. Which is a very handy feature. But now I want to talk about a few things with Kaiserreich that you should probably be aware of. First of all, at this point, the Spanish Civil War does not exist in the game. Because those of you who have played the version of Kaiserreich for Darkest Hour will know this. In Spain, there's a series of events that will set off a three-sided civil war. You will have the Carlists, who show up and declare war on the government, as well as the anarchists. The anarchists are communists, and the Carlists are... They want to put the old Bourbon king back on the Spanish throne, rather than the Napoleon one. Or something like that. I don't really remember. But yeah. There's some stuff like that. And also, world tension doesn't really seem to affect much of anything in the game, so that sort of still needs some work. But overall, I have to say, this mod is very, very impressive. And the thing with it that I like the most is just how unexpected everything is. How you could play one game and have a single outcome and play another and have something completely different. Like in this game, Finland joined Middle Europa and allied with the Germans. In another, Finland could turn communist and ask for an alliance with the Soviet Union. And in this game, I chose to I chose to put the Soviets in power. In another, the Russians could decide to put some military guy on the throne through a coup. And that might lead to a bloody civil war. India, the Dominion of India gets declared war on by the Kingdom of Afghanistan through an event. Sometimes the Dominion of India will just sign a white peace, but it's entirely possible they might invade and annex India. Well, India might invade and annex Afghanistan, rather. That's entirely possible. These kind of things happen. They're completely random, and that's the best part of it. And you have things like this that happen. Germany establishing Vietnam and Laos as puppet states, so they don't have communist uprisings there. And the Kingdom of Morocco. So I have to say, as this mod is right now, Kaiserreich is very impressive. And I'm looking forward to seeing how things evolve. At the moment, it has a solid foundation. Its feature set is excellent, and I really like what it has. But it's still in early alpha, let's not forget that. So you probably want to know about how stable is it. Well, at least in my experience, it's been fairly stable. I've had maybe 5-6 crashes over the course of 10 hours playing it. And for me, I think that's an excellent ratio. As I said, 5 or 6 crashes over 10 hours. That is not bad. Not bad at all. So, for me, Kaiserreich would be a solid recommend. I highly suggest you go and check it out. This is an excellent mod, and I think everybody who's played Hearts of Iron 4 should play it. If you're looking for something fresh and interesting, and don't mind dealing with the occasional crash, then this is for you. And if you want to try out a cool alternate history scenario that's a little tongue-in-cheek, a little plausible, and a bit of a laugh sometimes, then this is definitely the one for you. I have to say, Kaiserreich for Darkest Hour is one of the best Hearts of Iron mods I have ever played, full stop. And I'm certain that given time, this mod will be just as good. I'll revisit it in a few updates time and see how it's doing. I might even make another video a little bit down the line, but I'm not going to do a review every patch because there would be no point in that. So, I think I will call this here. Also, I've had a little experience that you may want to be aware of. Sometimes the autosaves that you get around the 6-month mark or so, yeah, the autosaves, and when you hit the go to main menu button after quitting, both of those have caused crashes on occasion. It's only like 2 or 3 times, but it has happened to me, so you should be aware of that. If it happens, then just reload and carry on. It's not something I've experienced any significant issues or anything I feel you should be particularly worried about. But it will happen on occasion. Just be aware of that. So, this has been Dark Phoenix Ninja 92. Thank you for watching my review of Kaiserreich for Hearts of Iron 4. I highly recommend you check out this mod. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.